Good afternoon from Circuit Paul Ricard in the beautiful south of France. The sun is out, the wind is up, but we're ready to go qualifying for the Radical Cup Europe. A circuit here at Paul Ricard, which these little Radical machines are absolutely tailor-made for. My name is Peter Mackay. I'll be taking you through the action for these couple of sessions, qualifying 1 for race 1's grid and qualifying 2 for race 2's grid. And joining me on the down on the pit lane, we'll have Carla Velti and Peter Snowden, who'll join us in just a moment. But I'll bring into the broadcast booth now Simon Hill. Simon, ready for this weekend?
Cannot wait. Love being at Paul Ricard. The weather, as you can see, blustery but nice and sunny and warm. They had some torrential rain and very, very heavy winds yesterday afternoon. Fortunately, after the track action had finished, but it caused some concern in the paddock. There were many an awning being blown around all over the place and lots of concerns about the fuel station, for example, moving. But today, as you can say, pretty typical. I think thinking back to my years of watching the great Murray Walker commentate on the French Grand Prix here, he would have talked about the wind, the Mistral wind blowing down the Mistral Straight, and I think we've very much got plenty of that today, Pete.
Well, today it is definitely blowing down the straight and making it very, very tricky indeed. Well, we have down in the pit lane Carla Velti and Peter Snowden, so let's catch up with them.
Hello everyone, and welcome from the pit lane here at the Circuit Paul Ricard. You mentioned the wind up in the comms box, but you don't feel the wind. It is very windy. If I turn my head the wrong way around, you will see all my baby hair flying around. It is time for round 3 of the Radicals. And let me tell you, it's the first time actually that I get to do this, the Radical from the pit lane, and I'm super excited. The cars are unique. The cars have a lot of power, a lot of passion in them, and there is so much that we can talk about and very little time today. It's time for qualifying 1 and qualifying 2, and luckily I don't have to do this alone. I have someone with me who knows a bit more about race cars in general than me, because you do have a little bit of experience, don't you? Welcome, Snowy.
Yeah, never a factory driver though, remember. It's a standing joke. Yeah, I was just thinking about, Simon just mentioned about the rain we had last night, which will, yeah, we've got the Mistral wind, but the rain will have washed the track, so it's going to be completely green, which will be entertaining because tracks rubber up and green up over the course of a weekend. Of course, that's literally just being washed away. So I think it'll be interesting watching these. I think these times will evolve a lot during these sessions before we get to these 2 Radical races. But like you, Carla, really, really excited about these cars. Totally different things. I think they're all one model except one, isn't there? There's one SR10. So
exactly.
Going to be, it's going to be super competitive at the front.
Can you explain something to me? You have driven in open cars like that, I'm guessing, at some point in your life. How much does the wind affect you? And what do they have to be careful about now when they go out as soon as it's green?
Quite a bit, actually. If you look at the modern crash helmet design, they quite often have a bit of aero sort of spoilers on the top of the helmet, and initially looking and think it's a bit of a vanity thing. It isn't. It really, really does actually keep your head up, because you get buffeting, and of course then if you get buffeting you can get double vision, and then you don't get braking points and apexes, so you need to have that eliminated as much as possible. Why you need neck strength to be fit. And
Circuit Paul Ricard, you're no stranger to that either, aren't you? What's your favorite part about being here in the car, actually? I want to know what it is like to be in a car on here.
Oh, super, super fast. If you look at seeing the big corner at the end, without the chicane, absolutely total commitment. You've got to know what you're doing to get a time out of that. You can lose so much time through that. You don't normally lose lots of time in high-speed corners. You lose that in technical bits because you're in that bit of track so much longer. But on the fast bit like that, you've got to be committed. Once you've turned in, you've committed, and it can just go. You can go from 0 to 0 really quite quickly from turn into apex.
All right. That's from the point of view of a race driver himself, former race driver, we must say. Well, every now and then he gets a chance to do that again. And we will give back up to the comms box because the pit lane just went green.
Thank you, Carla. Thank you, Snowy. It's certainly one of the circuits that every driver dreams about coming to race at. It's got such a heritage here. Circuit Paul Ricard, founded in 1970 by Paul Ricard himself. And there's many different trains of thought as to why he named the circuit, but one theory is that it was to get around the advertising laws at the time, so he could advertise his pastis to those on television. And of course, Formula One racing came here right from the very beginning.
Yeah, 71 was the first Grand Prix, won by Jackie Stewart, a countryman of yours, of course. And then it was pretty much between here at Paul Ricard and Dijon were the two circuits that were used really. In 72 they were at Charade, that amazing volcanic circuit that was up in the middle of France there. But pretty much all the way through to 84 was the last race they had at Dijon, and then they were switching between the two. So lots of fabulous stories, some spectacular racing and accidents and all kinds of stuff happened here over the years. And yeah, going to be interesting to see how these drivers cope with that wind. Interestingly, I caught up with James Kellett, who most of you will know as star driver in Paradigm competition in the GT World Challenge, but he's also racing in the 992 category here, and he was out in the session. There was a session just before lunch for the Michelin Creventic 24H cars, and obviously the Porsche 992 classes are within that. And he was explaining to me that how they were able to brake so incredibly late into turn one because of the strength of the headwind, but then had the opposite problem at the end of the straight going into Signes, where it was felt like, his words, they were doing 300 miles an hour.
And it's such a lightweight car as well. I mean, these little Radical SR3s, they're only 620 kilos, and there's a huge amount of aerodynamic performance, big aerodynamics at the rear, and the latest XXR version with the tail fin also just gives that little bit better stability too through the fast corners. Really impressive piece of kit. 230 horsepower from a 1.5 litre engine, which actually starts off its life as a motorbike engine. It's perfect, and it's mounted horizontally right in the middle of the car, so the actual balance of the car is beautiful.
Yeah, it comes from a Hayabusa motorbike, and one of the challenges of talking to the guys from Radical earlier, they were saying is that the engine and the gearbox are basically the same as you would get. Obviously, the engine is taken away and completely rebuilt by the team at Radical, so although it is essentially comes from the bike manufacturer, it's been modified to obviously have the durability for what it's going to be used for in the car. Gearbox is more or less the same as well, so the real challenge with this is the differential that links the two together, and that's where the engineers at Radical have had to work so hard to make sure that that worked properly to give you obviously a combination of performance and reliability. The other thing that's going to be super critical, we mentioned about the weather, we've mentioned the wind a couple of times, but where they had the torrential rain yesterday, it's gone from a track which had 2-3 days of high level of grip going down, the Michelin rubber going down from the Michelin Creventic runners, the TCR cars are here, also obviously the Radicals that we're looking at now, and then it was all washed away quite literally at the end of today. So you'll have heard the term a green circuit, and very much was the case. Talking to Ryan Diel, who was out in the Era Motorsport Ferrari, he said the first couple of laps the car was just totally different to what it was yesterday. So for these drivers, that's very much going to be the case. I'm talking to Bobby Thompson, who coaches Jack Yang in this. He said that, you know, it's going to be really interesting to see who can get the balance right of the early part of the session to make sure that they bring the tyres in correctly. Slightly different compound of, structure of Hankook tyre that they had at Spa, with a slightly stiffer tyre wall, I believe, and that changed the way that they had to scrub the tyres. But already we see Luke Kendall really getting stuck in. Purple sectors all along there, Peter. 2:10.577 currently quickest.
15 minutes of qualifying left of total of 20. 2 qualifying sessions we have, one for the grid for race number 1 and the other for race number 2. So plenty of track time for these Radicals. They've been out for practice already this morning, and as Simon just mentioned, with the pre-event testing, which is a big part of the Creventic championships, where you get lots of track time prior to each of your races. And I mean, here in the sunshine in the south of France, there's not many better ways to spend a trip. So 2:10.5, the benchmark at the moment. Marcus Littlewood, the championship leader, 2:10.6. So he's only 49 thousandths off that pole time, and he's just gone absolute best in sector 1. So Marcus Littlewood in that RSR entered machine, he is looking to nab that pole position, because of course sprint race coming up for these drivers, grid position is very, very important.
Yeah, and although it's quite a wide open circuit, like a lot of F1 spec circuits, and if you look at the 5 tracks that we race on this year as part of the Michelin 24H series, which obviously the Radical European Cup is at every of those events, all of them are F1 spec circuits. Obviously Mugello held Formula 1 during the COVID year, had a Grand Prix there and has had a lot of testing there. Spa-Francorchamps, Nürburgring, here obviously at Paul Ricard and Barcelona, all tracks that either current F1 or fairly recently have held Formula 1 races. And of course, Ricard has been famous over the years as a test track. You look at these incredibly distinctive, I think, am I right to say unique stripes, the red, white and blue? Is that unique to Paul Ricard?
I believe so, yeah, I believe so. I did hear David Vink from Creventic earlier saying this is like a European Yas Marina circuit, which I thought was a great comment, because it's that they've got the kind of sprawling stripes across, a great facility as well here. Yeah, ideal place to come and not only come and race, but you're right, come and do testing and development as well. Well, it's game on at the front because Luke Kendall has just turned up the wick once more, a 2:10 flat for him, and then it's just been it's just been blown out of the park. Marcus Littlewood, a 2:09.1 for the driver of the number 3. So the championship leader, Marcus Littlewood, laying down a very, very strong marker indeed.
Interestingly, that was almost all made up in the final sector. He made best part of a second in the final sector. The first 2 sectors was marginally quicker than Luke Kendall, but only by a few hundredths, if not tenths. But at the end of the lap, he found a huge chunk of time. That was a hugely impressive. But this is going to swing backwards and forwards. Kendall has gone purple in sector 1, so ultimate, absolute best rather in sector 1. So these 2 drivers really have been the star of the show so far this season in terms of pure speed. Marcus Littlewood, of course, the current British champion, and comes into this championship really as a young driver with an awful lot of ability. As with often is the way, I don't think there's a huge abundance of budget, but he's making the best of what he's got, so he's doing a fabulous job in that respect. And I think you turn up to a Radical Europe weekend and you know it's going to be these 2 drivers that are probably going to be the absolute pace, and that certainly is the case. Having said that, Erlend Juan Olsen in the Radical Norway car has nipped in between them with a 2:09.549.
Yeah, great run from him in the number 911 machine. The Radical Norway team based at the Rudskogen circuit, which actually is one of the circuits you can drive on iRacing. So it's a really cool little track, actually, is Rudskogen. I'm sure I'm pronouncing it incorrectly. We've just a couple of weeks ago I was in Sweden doing Royal Rally of Scandinavia, and some of the stage names I thought it sounds like that surely, and no, nowhere near, absolutely nowhere near. Very challenging, either Swedish or Norwegian. Luke Kendall goes quicker again, a 2:09.125 to knock Marcus Littlewood off pole position by 10,000ths of a second. And as we mentioned, from Radical Norway, Erlend Juan Olsen in third, but straight away Littlewood now goes ahead, 2:08.5, so he's gone half a second clear. So clearly, Simon, the tyre has more and more to give as the session progresses.
Another driver that I was talking to who knows these cars inside out and does a lot of coaching is James Winslow, and James was telling me that exactly that it seems that the Hankook tyre seems to be able to hang on and get almost stronger as the lap progresses, plus obviously the fuel burn element, you know, that seems to make quite a difference to these small cars, because they are, as you said earlier, very lightweight cars anyway. So as a percentage of the weight of the car, starting the session with a bit more fuel in, obviously it's going to start to improve as the laps progress. And here obviously at Ricard you do have that wonderful mixture of some really challenging, very high speed corners, few chicanes, couple of hairpins, bit of everything. So you're really going to start to see who's got the balance right. And there are, as there always will be, lots of different teams with different ideas on setup, driver preference. And that seems to be very much manifesting itself by the fact that we have 3 drivers at front. Another driver right in the mix there. I mentioned about Bobby Thompson doing some coaching for Jack Yang, and he's up there 4th at the moment with a 2:10.140.
I have to be honest, I wasn't going to have a go at his Chinese name there. Jax is Jack will go with that. Very tricky one to pronounce there. Whoa, a little bit of twitch and wiggle there from the number 3 of Marcus Littlewood, the championship leader. And quite a short wheelbase, these cars, and when you look underneath the skin, there's not much to them. They're very, very lightweight and so responsive. No power steering, you don't need it. They give you all the feel through the wheel. Some of them have even still got their second seat installed, so you can truly terrify people if you're taking it to a track day.
That's where the coaching comes in, you see. A lot of coaches these days, as Littlewood looks like he may well improve again. 2 purple sectors, crosses the line, 285.74 now, 207.931. Sensational lap by Marcus Littlewood.
Just finding so much lap time in and out. What a sound these Radicals make, that 1.5 litre engine starting off life as a motorbike engine, but developed into this racing engine by Radical. Just over 8 minutes to go then in this qualifying session, and still plenty of lap time to come. 207.9 is the benchmark for Marcus Littlewood. Luke Kendall won a 209 flat, and Erland Juan Olsen a 209.5 at the moment. Problem though for the number 3 machine, the going off the road.
I think that's Ross Board, actually.
Yes, it is. You're right, number 8, excuse me.
Yeah. And yeah, a bit of a drama there, as we saw. But interestingly, Littlewood still improving, gone faster yet again in Sector 1. So he's just finding time, chunks and chunks of time all along. There is the number 8 of Ross Board that we were riding on board with, pardon the pun. We saw a little bit of an incident. Car that flashed through our shop briefly earlier was car 17. Fantastic to see that car on circuit. Little story behind that. The RJ Motorsport team have had to work their absolute socks off. It was quite literally all hands on deck to get a replacement engine in. Unfortunately, the engine, they had some problems in testing, needed a replacement engine. The engine was being shipped out from the UK, got delayed, and literally arrived in the paddock at the absolute last minute, and it required a Herculean effort from the RJ Motorsport team to get the 17 car on track. The husband and wife entry of Pascal and Valerie Bachmann, the Swiss pairing, and that is a tremendous effort by those folks. So let's see how they're getting on. They're doing a pretty good job, just outside the top 10 with Pascal currently P11.
Big effort, big effort to change an engine and to make sure everything's all plugged in, everything's all ready to go, and the car's running well. The car's running really well indeed at the moment, in 11th position in this qualifying session. Of course, one more qualifying session to come for Radical Cup Europe to set the grid for race 2. And Ross Board now just kind of struggling to get back into a bit of a rhythm here in car number 8, the black and green, almost almost Tequila Patron-esque, if we remember that one.
Or Steak Sauber, maybe more recently.
Yes, a good one. Yeah, see, you're down with the kids.
Hardly. On many things, I'm certainly not that. But yeah, I think a little bit of a last of the late breakers there, and didn't quite see the car coming through there. But you know, obviously everyone's focused on the job in hand again. I don't know if this is a replay of the earlier running wide from Ross, or if this is another one. But if that is the case, that could well be testament to this high winds. You know, we're looking out of our comms box across. We're sitting pretty much opposite the start-finish line here, and we can see just those flags are pretty much standing upright opposite us. There's flags of all nations across there. It's like the World Cup. What's happening at the World Cup this year, Pete?
Scotland are
there!
Go on, Scotland.
I got a great story to tell you later about Ryan DL and Scotland in the World Cup, but that's another story.
Okay, that's one.
Don't worry, folks, it's perfectly clean, which is surprising when it involves Ryan DL, but there you go.
So yeah, that incident for Ross Board, that was round the kind of back part of the circuit at the end of the Mistral Straight, which we are running with the chicane on the Mistral Straight, but it would take a wee while in the Radical without it. But coming into Signe, which is the notorious fast right-hander at the end, a GT3 car is doing 240 kilometers an hour into there. And it just seemed to run on deep and couldn't quite get it done. But with that wind really pushing the car on behind, very, very easy to get it wrong. So Marcus Littlewood, fastest at the moment with a 207.9, and he's going quicker again on this lap. 208.7 for Luke Kendall in second, and Lohan Stevens in the RJ Motorsport car has just put his personal best lap of the session in 209. 6.2 for him. That's pushed Erlen Juan Olsen back to 4th, and Jack Yang rounds out the top 5 for Vara Racing.
Yeah, the other car we need to give a quick mention to is the number 9 car, currently being driven by Peter Gustafsson, which is the lone representative of the SR10 class. Now, you mentioned earlier, Peter, about the wonderful little 1.5 RPE engine, as it's called, that runs in the SR3 XXR. But the SR10 XXR, 425 horsepower, so just over or just under 100 horsepower, 200 horsepower more, a little bit heavier, 725 kilos, so about 100 kilos heavier than the SR3, but they're using more of a car-based engine rather than a bike-based engine, a 2.3 turbocharged engine, launched in 2020, and now it's in their 2nd generation. But they're the only drivers that are running that car, and usually you see, and certainly we saw at Spa, unbelievably quick on a single lap in the hands of I can never remember which way around it's Peter or Philip is the quicker of the 2 drivers. Philip is the official Radical dealer in Sweden, and he also runs the Scandinavian Championship, 10 championships around the world, UK to Australia, Philippines, UAE, Europe, Canada, and continental championships with the Radical Cup North America and the new, as we're looking at here, Radical Cup Europe.
It's fantastic. The SR3, the world's best-selling race car in terms of sheer numbers of chassis out there. And I think to get that kind of LMP experience, particularly an open-top LMP experience, I mean, we're nearly 10 years now, there's not been an open-top Le Mans prototype car racing, certainly in contemporary series, but to get that experience, that, I feel like the terrible cliche, wind in your hair, but that very nimble, stiff, high aero car, you get that for a fraction of the cost of a full Le Mans prototype. So just a couple of minutes left on the clock then. Marcus Littlewood preparing for one last dash. He might even just get 2 in as he comes to the line now. Over the line he goes. Do you know, he might just get a 2nd lap in if he wants it. Pit board telling him P1, but we might still see some evolution. There's still personal best times going in on the lap charts.
I guess the thing is, going back to the point we were making earlier, having spoken with James Winslow and Bobby Thompson, who know these cars inside out for all the coaching, is the fuel burn element of it. Now, go back to your point there, if he has got the opportunity to do an additional lap, would that be a quicker lap because he's just got a little bit less fuel in? Or is that paid off by the fact that the tyres are now just starting to lose a little bit of performance? They haven't done what I think you and I would probably know from the wonderful world of Formula One as a push-pull-push type situation where they push back off and go again. They seem to have been, from what I could see, in most cases, on it all the way through. So just finding time and time and time, which is indicative that the tyre is very robust, that it's really able to put up with that kind of very hard work that's going through. This is Lowen Stevens we're seeing in the luminous yellow and black, the car run by RJ Motorsport. So interestingly, at the top, as we see the 9 car Peter Gustafsson, that's the SR10 with a bit of damage. Good old tank tape. What would we do without it, hey, Pete?
I'm just wincing at the damaged carbon fibre. Why don't we get an update then with Peter Snowden, who's up close to this SR10. Snowy.
Yeah, but just we've got Seb, cameraman here, filming this for us beautifully. There's been a bit of damage to the splitter to the front right. And of course, what race car is complete without tank tape, gaffer tape on it? But our driver's got his crash helmet on still. What happened?
I hit the flaps, what do you call
Like the posts? One of the posts, yes? Okay, you caught one of the posts.
Oh, yeah.
And where was that on the circuit?
What was on way to straight.
Okay, so it's done a little bit of damage, but repairable?
Oh, yes, I think so.
Okay, so there you have it. So that's all it was, just caught one of the posts on the straight into it. I'm sure he's probably outbraked himself for a chicane or something. So they're busy repairing it, as I think as Seb is showing us right now, and it won't be too long before this is back out. Won't be this session, though, will it? Because I think we're only about 5 minutes to go, haven't we?
In fact, the clock has gone to 0, so it's last chance saloon now. Marcus Littlewood has gone into the pit, so that maybe answers our question on the amount of performance left in the tyre after 20 minutes of flat-out running. but it's been an improvement for Luke Kendall in the Valor Racing machine, but still 0.8 of a second off the Littlewoods benchmark. Checkered flag is being shown then. 208.7 that was for Kendall in second position, but any more for any more? At the moment, doesn't look like it. It looks like, unless Luke Kendall can find something, he's the only driver left on a flyer. He's gone personal best in Sector 1, so we'll keep a close eye on where the number 54 car is. It's, I can't see it on my track. It is, yeah, just coming down to Senior at the moment. Think of that, but right at the fastest point of the circuit, and in a Radical, that corner must be, it must be so good, with really being able to lean on the aero through there, and that fast right-hander.
Completely, and again, talking to James, he was saying, you know, around here, this is, you know, you're pretty much flat through all of the quick stuff. Really just hang on in there. They've got so much grip. As you said earlier, they're only 620 kilos in the case of the SR3 and 725. So even the heavier SR10 is still such an absolute fraction. I remember my first brand new car was a Renault 5 Turbo that weighed 760 kilos back in 1988. Show me age there, before you were born, Pete.
I was going to say, you in 1988 in an R5 Turbo, there's definitely stories from that era of life, I would imagine.
It was, yeah, how I'm still here is quite remarkable, really. The world was a much more lenient place in 1988 anyway, but there's our star driver, 207.891. It really did look like he had it under control from his first flying lap. It was obviously a great effort by Luke Kendall, Erland Juanelson and Lowen Stevens to be in the mix, but it just looked like whatever those other guys had, it was just a little bit more. And if you actually look at it, 0.813 is the advantage that Marcus had at the end of that. And it'll be interesting to see now, with such a small time gap between session 1 and session 2, what changes are. You can see they're bleeding the tyres there, just letting some of the pressures out of the tyres, going back to closer to what perhaps would be a cold pressure, if you like, which would suggest that they may well be using the same tyres again.
That would suggest, yes. That's very interesting, because the teams get 2 fresh sets of tyres per meeting to use. Normally the done thing is to put a fresh set on for each qualifying session, and then you can use them in the race. But if you keep just one set to use through both qualifying sessions, kind of take a bit of pain in the second qualifying session, but then you get the gain of having a brand new sticky set for the race. So I guess, Simon, that for us as fans following the series, if you've got some that are maybe not qualified as high as you would expect, but start the race on fresh tyres, that should give us some fantastic races.
Yeah, going to be interesting. That could well be the case between some of the front runners here, because as we said, you know, the rumours are that maybe Marcus is going to stick with just the one set as we get a chance to look at our qualifying results.
So qualifying 1, then Marcus Littlewood on pole with a 207.891 ahead of the Valor Racing number 54 of that one is of Luke Kendall. Espen Olsen was 3rd for Radical Norway, followed by Lowen Stevens and Jack Yang. Morten Dons was 6th, the Danish driver, ahead of Andrew Lowe and the number 15 machine of Amir Faizulan. So let's go down to the pits then and catch up with Carla Velti.
As you can see, cars came in and cars are going out again, because we have a very unique situation here that certain cars are driven by one driver, but there are other cars that have 2 drivers. So one driver would drive for the race 1, the qualifying 1, and the other driver would drive the qualifying 2. For example, Mr. Shu, welcome. So P6 in that first session. How do you feel about that one?
Yeah, I'm a bit disappointed because we've had engine issues all week, so we just haven't found a solution to the problem. So P6 is unfortunate because, yeah, we lose about 2 seconds per lap because of the issues.
How can you translate those issues to someone that doesn't know what you're talking about right now? What's the feeling that you have in the car?
Yeah, out of the corners, I feel like there's no traction or no power. And on the straights, we're just like sitting ducks. All the other guys are just either overtaking us or coming toward us in the rear. So, yeah.
Now, you are sharing the car, correct? You don't drive the car by yourself. Does that mean that you will be driving race 1 tomorrow, which is the qualifying that you did now, and your partner is going to drive race 2 tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll drive the first part of race 1, and then we'll swap, and he will be in the car for the second part of race 1, and then yeah, we'll swap.
Okay, fantastic. Well, good luck for qualifying 2. You have to look at that now from the box exactly. Thank you very much. I did try to catch our current P1 or qualifying P1 setter. He is already out because he wanted to be immediately in the fast lane, right where the light would hit green again very soon, I imagine, or already does. Yeah, the cars are already out, running again. So let's see if he can repeat that P1 that he has secured for race 1 now, in qualifying 2 for race 2. Back to you guys in the comms box.
Thank you, Carla. Yeah, Marcus Littlewood wasting no time, as Simon mentioned, just a quick reduction to cold tyre pressures, or effectively the cold tyre pressure, and back out again. Good to catch up there with Sebastian Schou, the Danish driver, sharing with Morten Stromstedt in the Step Motorsport machine. And yeah, if you're kind of going in with one hand behind your back, trying to struggle away with those engine issues.
Yeah, great frustration for the team there. They were pretty strong at Spa-Francorchamps recently, so hopefully the engineers and the team will be able to get to the bottom and get it sorted before the race, because that's clearly a big disadvantage for them. We'll have a look in a minute when we see them on track as to when we look at the sector times. They usually give you a speed as well, so we'll be able to see how that compares as we see the onboard there of the 55 car being driven by Diego Dambra and Jess Frantzen sharing that car, the Italian Diego Dambra and the Danish driver Jess Frantzen, team race streaming. And it's going to be interesting to see where they end up with Diego on board, as we say at the moment.
Quick down the Mistral straight, and these cars with the wind behind them, pushing them.
Out by a week in about 500 kilometres.
Just a bit, yeah. Wrong series, wrong
series, wrong straight, wrong circuit.
Yeah.
I'll let you off, Pete. That's all right.
Yeah, that's good. It's good that you mentioned it, though, so that I was certainly aware of my mistake and could learn from it. Thank you for that.
Yeah. So, what's the saying? I'm not annoyed, I'm just disappointed.
Okay, good. I'll try not to disappoint you any further.
Some purple sectors already by Luke Kendall. We're seeing those, so that's going to be interesting to see. Maybe they've found a little bit of setup changes on Luke's car just to get him closer, because 8/10 was a big chunk.
Huge.
So you wonder to see, and also I wonder if maybe, because we didn't get a chance to see, if Luke has taken new tyres.
Well, there's a little assignment for Carla and Snowy to go and find out who's put new tyres on and who has decided to crack on with the Hankook boots that were already fitted. That was certainly what Marcus Littlewood did, and we'll wait for those first few times to come up. And 2:18.5, not an indicative lap time yet, but we will get one in just a second, as the number 3 of Marcus Littlewood heading down towards the back part of the circuit, down towards the Virage du Pont. I've been trying to work on my French pronunciations. I've even got some little phonetic descriptions for the corner names. Yeah, so Signé, the double droite de Bossé.
Check you out.
Yeah.
That's right. It even sounds better with a Scottish accent. You're full on James Bond there. I like that. Very, very cool. Yeah, it's a bit like, I love talking to Ryan DL, because his accent switches from full-blown proper, I've just come from Glasgow, to I now live in America, by the sentence almost. It's quite interesting
It's really fluid, isn't it? Yeah. Great guy, Ryan.
I did say to Dario Franchitti, name dropping here, I did say to Dario Franchitti once, the most impressive thing about you, Dario, is not all the wins in the Indy 500s, it's the fact that you still sound like you're from Edinburgh after all those years in the States. With many a Scottish accent that's got a twang to it, a bit of a US twang that has been over there. You've been in the States a lot, and I think you probably know what I mean by that, Pete.
You're right. He has not had his accent changed at all. It's amazing. Luke Kendall goes to the top then, 2:08.957. That's it's 2.5 seconds clear of the best time, which actually we just had a lap time disallowed there. It's just quickly disappeared off the screen. So 2:08.9, the quickest at the moment for Luke Kendall. John McLeod in the number 14 car, 2.5 seconds off the ultimate pace in second. Then it's Martin Stromstad in third, Jahid Fazal Karim in fourth, and Jack Yang in fifth right now. But still those top times coming in, and like the first session, I'm sure, particularly for those who have put the new tyre on anyway, they'll be burning away fuel. And I guess for Marcus Littlewood, you know, no fuel going in the car at the halfway point, so again, he'll still be burning weight off. And as a percentage of, you know, your 625 kilos, it's pretty much, or 620 kilos, excuse me, it's pretty much exactly half the weight of a GT3 car. And even a GT3 car, when it burns off fuel across the stint, you get a difference. So
massive difference.
It's a much bigger percentage of the car's weight.
We'll see that later today when the Creventic, Michelin Creventic 24H series cars, they're qualifying across 3 sessions, and you'll notice that the third driver in that will obviously have a new set of tyres, but also a significantly lighter fuel load. So it's going to be very obvious how that represents itself with lap times. But going back and looking at the times, 2:08.957, as you mentioned there, an absolute best from Marcus Littlewood in Sector 1. Now remember, these times that we're seeing here, when we're looking at sectors and times, these are unique to this session. So whilst we're talking about a purple sector, or fastest of anyone, that's for this qualifying session, not necessarily across the two. I mentioned that there'd been a lap time deleted. In fact, there was 3 lap times deleted, one for Marcus Littlewood, one for Erlen Van Olsen, and one for the 64 of Lowen Stevens for track limits. I feel we're going to be talking quite a lot about track limits here at Paul Ricard. It's you know, we've got quite a lot of tarmac runoff, and therefore it's the track limits have to be policed very, very tightly, because otherwise it becomes a bit messy. So Luke Kendall then on top at the moment by half a second from Lowen Stevens. Erlen Van Olsen goes to third, Jack Yang in fourth, John McLeod in fifth, and Morten Stromstad in seventh. John McLeod just been bopped down to fifth. But Marcus Littlewood, he is at the moment, his best lap time is a 2:16.5. That would indicate to me that he's getting a lot more than one lap disallowed there. Could be the lap times disallowed, or also just could be that he's just not really got into a groove yet. A bit of both, perhaps. Traffic could be a factor, of course. You know, 16 cars on the grid here today at Paul Ricard, so you know, there's enough cars that if you just catch them wrong, and you only have to catch them in the wrong place, and you really are struggling, as we see Brian Huang going down the inside into turn 1. And going to be interesting to see what this car, the 54 car of Luke Kendall, can do. Is he improving? Well, he improved in Sector 1. He put the absolute best of a 35.194. Sector 2 not quite as strong, but overall still could be an improvement. And see whether it will get closer to the 207s that we saw Marcus Littlewood put down in the first session earlier today.
Lovely warm conditions here at Paul Ricard, but the breeze is very welcome. It's actually quite a cooling breeze. It's very pleasant, actually, the Mistral breeze here at Paul Ricard. We came for this event last year at the end of July, and it was stiflingly hot. At the moment, it's a perfect 21.6 degrees Celsius, just ideal.
Exactly. And talking of perfection, Marcus Littlewood has just done a 2:08.212, so improves and goes quickest in the session by 0.230 ahead of Luke Kendall. An absolute best in the final sector was about 0.3 up on Kendall's lap last time out, but Kendall still slightly quicker in Sector 1. So this seems to be a lot closer between these two guys in this session. I think there's a bit more yin and yang, as it were.
But Marcus Littlewood's doing it on the same tyres that he did qualifying 1 on. Now, we don't know if Luke Kendall did the same thing. Perhaps Snowy and Carla can find out if the 54 car of Luke Kendall has put on new tyres. They might not want to tell. They might not want to tell us, but we'll try. That's for sure. Car number 8. That is Ross Board. He's had another lap time cancelled, running a little bit further down the order. Just not had the qualifying session he really wanted. Difficult day. You just get these days sometimes where it just doesn't quite click together. And it's but the big points, of course, are handed out tomorrow.
Interestingly, we saw the onboard with Ross Board in the previous session of him running very, very wide a couple of times, which would could be a track limits infringement, even though there might not be an advantage gained. We've seen this sometimes before in other forms of motorsport. Somebody maybe has a big snap of oversteer, runs wide, loses time, but actually gets the time disallowed because they have still actually transgressed and gone outside track limits.
It's a good point. Yeah, very good point. We think we might have an update on what's going on with the number 54 car of Luke Kendall. Has he put on new tyres or is he on the existing one? Carl Lavelti has the answer.
Very, very simple question. No, neither. He is still out on the same tires, and there is no refueling happening, or no refueling happened here at all, which means he is lighter, but the tires are more used. So let's see if he can keep this pace up and maybe even push it to P1. But there you have your answer.
Thank you, Carla. Yeah, so that's great. Marcus Littlewood and Luke Kendall on an even playing field then, both deciding to go straight into qualifying 2 with the same set of tyres and keep that sticky set left, that brand new set for, well, either race 1 or race 2, but not both, of course.
Well, that's the next bit of research we need to do, isn't it? And that might not could be an immediate answer. Obviously, we have 2 races this weekend, one tomorrow morning, bright and early, and one on Sunday morning, both sure to give us plenty of action. And I think certainly looking at this, there's going to be a few other little factors that we'll explain when we get to the races about pit stop times and all this kind of stuff, which could make things a little bit more mixed up. And certainly I wouldn't be at all surprised to see Littlewood, Kendall and Stevens plus Erlen Van Olsen very much in the mix.
208 flat then is the benchmark from Marcus Littlewood. We saw a 207 in the first session, didn't we? So, but considering though that the tyres have got much more laps on them, that's very impressive indeed. And the car burning off the fuel.
I would think though, on that basis, when we're looking at how long we've got left now, that potentially there's enough in there with 7 minutes to go, or just under 7.5 minutes to go to be precise. There is potentially enough time in there to do 3, maybe 4 laps possibly, and with more fuel burn. The tyres, as we've said, considering it's such a warm day, have been pretty durable. They seem to have been staying. The performance is coming in as the fuel burns off. So on that basis, if we saw Littlewood in the mid 207s in his first session, he's just done a 208 flat. He's not improving on this lap. That cool be a cool down lap. So that could be why, or could have been a bit of traffic. But certainly looking at his middle sector, it looks like he's just taking a breather, just a little bit of time, maybe just do some fuel burn. But on that basis, we could potentially, if he's a 208.1, a high 207's definitely doable on that basis.
Yellow flag being shown in turn 4 and 5. That's Virage de l'Hôtel and Virage du Camp. That will mean it would be very difficult to set a quick lap time there. One of the orange machines, which I'm going to go out on a limb, that's the Radical Netherlands car, the number 33 of Eddie Van Dam.
Could be, just to play devil's advocate, could be the Bachmann car that we were talking about earlier that's had the engine change. That's also a bright orange, the 17 car.
It turns out we are both wrong. We believe it's the number 17 car, the RJ Motorsport.
The Bachmann car. Oh, I was right.
Was that right?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Well done, sir. That's good. You're keeping me right. You're keeping me right.
Get you on your toes, Pete.
So round turn 4, left-hander, then just tipping into the right-hander, and there's a car's already across the road. So was the Radical Netherlands car going through? So we're all right, really.
We're all in there.
Yes. Exactly.
No harm done anyway. Looks like a spin. To quote a team manager of mine once, a spin is just a crash without an invoice. So that's a wonderful saying, isn't it?
Yeah, very true, very true. And then that's, I think, one of the things where Paul Ricard's a great circuit, because, if you're trying to build up confidence and you do make an error, there is room to get it wrong here. There's big runoff in a lot of places around the circuit. There's 1 or 2 places where there isn't, and you don't want to get it wrong. But generally speaking, it's pretty good for that. Improvement from Marcus Littlewood. 208 flat, and he's going quicker in this one. This could be a really good lap from Marcus Littlewood right now. The championship leader, Radical UK star as well. At the moment, in that number 54 car coming around to the last part now through Courbe de Caliban and Virage de la Tour, and he's backed out of it. He's completely backed out of it. That was definitely a personal best lap coming, and he's backed right out of it. He's going to go for another run with 4.5 minutes to go as he shoots past the start-finish line from our viewpoint here in the Global Broadcast Centre on the second floor of the amazing pit building here at Circuit Paul Ricard.
Yeah, that was really strange, wasn't it? Unless he was aware that he'd exceeded track limits. That's the only thing I could think of, it, other than, you know, no other mistake he may have been very conscious of making. But other than that, he could have thought, right, I'm miles off track limits here. No point in pushing. That last sector was something like 2.5, 3 seconds off of his personal best. So despite the purple sector 1 and green sector 2, he's obviously backed out of it. So let's just see as he's getting towards the end of sector 1. No, hasn't improved, but not far off of his personal best. Sometimes you get a bit hoodwinked by looking for purple or looking for green, and then you actually see a yellow sector come up, which is not their best. But until you compare it with the other ones, sometimes I've seen it before in some other series where you see 3 yellow sectors, but they're all, and that's, you know, a thousandths off of their best, and actually end up in pole.
That's an improvement. Yeah, that's very, very true. An improvement for Lohan Stevens. He goes up to 3rd with a 2:09 flat in the RJ Motorsport number 64 car, ahead of Jack Yang for Valor Racing in 4th. Erlen Juan Olsen rounds out the top 5 at this moment. Just over 3 minutes left in this session. Marcus Littlewood is improving on this lap. As Simon rightly mentioned, a good first sector and an improvement in the sector 2. He's now into the latter part of the lap here. Marcus Littlewood already has pole position for race 1 in his pocket. Can he make it 2? Well, at the moment he's sitting on provisional pole, but only with a margin of just over 0.3 of a second. So far from safe, but there's traffic. There's traffic to hit, and is he going to back out of it here? He might have to, with a lot of traffic coming in. In fact, might even get a little bit of a slipstream. No, seems like it's going to be a bit of traffic there. Oh,
no, that's absolutely ruined the lap, hasn't it?
Last bit, yeah.
Yeah, sorry to talk over you, Pete, but yeah, you could see just caught it just wrong. And he's still, I think that's the 17 car that we saw over the spin earlier. Let's see what he crosses the line with. 208.081, 208.866. So he's lost, looking at that, I reckon he's lost nearly a second in that last sector. And that would have, well, he's already on pole, but it would have been in the 7s, definitely.
It would have put him clear. Well, he got a chance. I don't know if he got the best run out of the final corner, out of Virage Dupont. So may well have compromised the opening sector of this lap, but he will get another one after this if he wants it. He's got the time to do it. We're running on the Mistral Straight, running the North Chicane this weekend. I suppose Signé is fast enough with the chicane. God knows what it must have been like without the chicane.
We go back to, I mentioned earlier about fondly remembering the great Murray Walker commentating on French Grand Prix of yesteryear. In the 80s, I remember Senna having an absolutely enormous shunt at scene when I think he had a puncture in, I'm guessing, 85 when he was in the JPS Lotus. And they still had catch fencing then. Do you remember that? Wonderful. Well, you won't remember it, Pete, but you'll have seen it, I'm sure. And historical videos of wooden fence poles with chicken wire between them. That was the great idea of trying to slow cars down. They hadn't actually considered the fact that there was a reasonably good chance the driver could get thumped by one of these wooden poles, or get caught up in the chicken wire. But and Mansell also had a massive shunt there in 85 and turned up at the British Grand Prix. This is how times have changed. Turned up the British Grand Prix a week or two later, not really knowing which day of the week it was, because he was still not 100%, and I think he ended up retiring from the race because he couldn't remember which way the road went. So those were the days, as they say.
Yeah, in many ways it's good that things have moved on and progressed, isn't it? Just, you know, pretty cool in those days. A 1,000 horsepower, 1.5 litre turbocharged F1 car. How cool is that? But yeah, not the safety standards. Definitely not cool.
And if you think, when there was famous stories of qualifying in those days where they never really quite knew how much power, because it went beyond what the dyno would give them, and I think there was stories of maybe 1,500 horsepower from the BMW turbo at the time, which was widely recognised because it had a cast iron block as being. When you think about that for a second, these are 1.5 engines, and those.
That's a lot of power from a very small unit, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So let's go back to the action here, and it looks like it's 2 for 2 for Marcus Littlewood.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, 2:08 flat then for Marcus Littlewood. That's going to put him on pole for both races then in his number 3 RSR Radical SR3. Luke Kendall in second, and an improvement at the end there. Lone Stevens third, just takes the checkered flag in number 64 car. Jack Yang in fourth. And then rounding out the top 5 is Erland Juan Olsen. Andrew Lowe can still improve, but he's at 6 at the moment. Amir Faizulan in 7th. Brian Huang in 8th. Jahid Fazal Karim in 9th. And John McLeod rounding out the top 10. Marcus Littlewood into the last sector of the track now.
I wonder if he's still pushing, actually,
no,
Pete.
He doesn't need to.
But Luke Kendall is still pushing. He's done a personal best sector 1 and a purple sector 2. So let's watch to see what the 54 car can do. The Valor Racing car, there it is.
Yep.
Has the young American driver got a little bit left just to potentially sneak it? He's currently 0.361 off pole position. And with the 2 sectors he's done so far, it's on. It's quite possible.
It could be. So Marcus Littlewood maybe not as safe as we thought. Here comes Luke Kendall then coming around towards the latter part of the circuit. Really quick through here and then down through the left-hander at Virage de la Tour. And then it'll be the right-hander of Virage du Pont. Is it going to be pole position at the last possible moment up towards the start-finish line? Luke Kendall leaning forward in the seat, trying to get that last little bit of speed. Is it going to be enough? No, 43 short of it. Oh, it's an improvement on the last lap, a 2:08.124, but 59 thousandths of a second was all that Luke Kendall needed to find to try and topple Marcus Littlewood. But it's Littlewood who puts it on pole, and actually an improvement from Littlewood at the end there was enough to get him on pole position. That is a tantalizing prospect for tomorrow. Littlewood versus Kendall.
And you remember we were saying earlier that you sometimes have sector times on the screen are shown as a yellow sector, which is obviously not your personal best. And there's a case in point, 3 yellow sectors for Marcus Littlewood, but all combined to just find enough time to squeak ahead of of Luke Kendall. And just looking at it, to give you a bit of a comparison here, these are the sectors. So sector 1, Littlewood 34.977, and Kendall 35.007. Then sector 2, 39.508 for Littlewood, 39.333 for Kendall, and then right at the end of the lap, 53.580 for Littlewood and 53.784. So they're literally switching between the 2 sectors. The first sector was almost identical. The second one, Kendall was much quicker, and the one at the end, Littlewood quicker. But what a fabulous performance by both those young drivers to really lock out the front row on both races.
I love the fact that the team for John McLeod RSR, they've got a scooter for the elderly, pulling the tyre trolley, which I thought that's very, very cool indeed. So qualifying complete then here at Circuit Paul Ricard for Radical Cup Europe. Qualifying 2, and it's the same result as qualifying 1. Marcus Littlewood on pole position then ahead of Valor Racing's Luke Kendall, with Lowen Stevens in 3rd in the 64 car. Then in 4th it was the 21 of Jack Yang, followed by Erland Juan Olsen in 5th. Andrew Lowe was 6th in the number 4 360 competition machine, ahead of Amir Faizulan. Brian Huang rounds out the top 8. Then it's Jahid Fazal Karim in 9th, and John McLeod, who we just mentioned there, rounding out the top 10. In 11th, it's Morten Stromsted for Step Motorsport, ahead of Ross Board and Diego D'Ambra in 13th. Eddie Van Dam in the Radical Netherlands machine 14th, and Valerie Bachmann rounds out the top 15. So we'll be back tomorrow with Radical Cup Europe for their for their first race. Really looking forward to that, and we'll get some reactions from our drivers down in the pit lane in a moment. But the action on track today is far from over, because in just under about 45 minutes time, actually, we'll be going live for qualifying for the Michelin 12 Hours of Paul Ricard, which is one we're all very much looking forward to. But an exciting qualifying session there, Simon, to follow that. And that clearly the tyre has got a lot of performance all the way through a stint, because that 10 laps, both from Littlewood and Luke Kendall there, and they've done a similar amount in the first session, so the tyre's going to keep giving that performance.
Super consistent. Let's have a little look at some highlights from our qualifying sessions.
Yeah, we had 2 qualifying sessions, 2 15-minute sprints, and really it was the story all the way through of Littlewood versus Kendall, trying to find that every last little bit of performance. And as the fuel burned away, more and more pace came through. And actually what surprised me, Simon, you think a really big circuit like that, 16 cars, you'd think everyone would have a bit of space, but as it always happens, everyone ends up tripping over each other.
Yeah, it's always the way, isn't it? You just seem to find someone just where you least need them. We saw, certainly, there's examples of track limits there from a few people. We saw right at the end of a flying lap from Marcus Littlewood, which we think, based on these other sector times, he would have got potentially an improvement over his into the 207s. We saw that spin from the 17 car. And as you quite rightly said, it was Littlewood versus Kendall, and Littlewood will be on pole for the 2 races.
Yeah, job done for him too. Didn't quite make it into the 207s, but may well have done actually on one of those laps towards the end of the session. 207, a very quick time around here. I mean, you're not far off the GT3 pace there. You may be, what are we talking, 6-7 seconds, something like that?
Yeah, I think the really quick times that we've been seeing is sort of 201s, something like that. So I think with the new tyres and a low fuel load, we might see them just sneaking under the 2-minute mark for qualifying later today with the pro drivers in the car.
Looking forward to that.
Let's see the 38 car there that picked up some damage. That's the Sebastian Schue and Morten Strom. So we heard from Sebastian early on saying that they had some problems with engine performance early on. Well, not quite sure whether that managed to get itself sorted. One thing we also saw, and we heard from Peter Gustafsson talking about the damage to his SR10, and unfortunately they didn't get out for that second qualifying session. So whatever it was, clearly was more than just a cosmetic damage to the nose.
Yeah, so they'll start from the back of the grid, unfortunately. Hopefully we're going to get a word with our pole sitter, the number 3 of Marcus Littlewood. But why don't we speak to the second place driver, Luke Kendall, who was oh so close to picking up that pole position, and he's caught up with Carlo Velti.
Luke, you did give us a good show. My, oh my, that was so tight. How did it feel out there?
It felt pretty good. It took a little while to find the couple tenths I was looking for, but I think we put in a good lap at the end, so I'm pretty good.
Tell me, you're quite new to the radical scene, aren't you? How are you feeling? Is it does it feel like home yet?
I'd say so. I mean, I've only been racing them for about a year and a half, but I mean, it's been a great time doing it.
Can you tell us a little bit about the tire behavior? Because we were quite surprised to see that there is no tire change. Are they just so durable, or do they even get better in time, maybe?
Yeah, so I feel like they take a little bit to get up to temp, to get up to speed, but when they do, I feel like they hold for a long time. I feel like at Spa, maybe it took a bit longer for that, and they did have a little bit of that fall off, but here I don't think they do as much.
How about the feeling in the car? You're driving an open car, and there's a lot of wind going on here. Do you actually feel that when you're driving?
Yeah, definitely. Going to like turn 11, the long sweeping right hand, my head's like getting pushed to the left, and down the back straight, it's just so much speed.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, you did a really good job. Well done. And I think we're going to have a really nice fight going on tomorrow. Good luck for tomorrow, and I'll see you there.
Thank you. I think it'll be fun.
Carlo Velti with our second place driver, Luke Kendall, who getting used to life at the wheel of the Radical, and of course had I'm sure a new circuit to enjoy as well. It's going to be a great battle between him and Marcus Littlewood tomorrow. Marcus Littlewood, the championship leader, with 122 points. Action for that race, we will have the coverage for you tomorrow, 9:55 local time here at Circuit Paul Ricard. First race of what is going to be a busy day on track at this amazing historical venue. Be sure to join us then, but set your watches only 40 minutes before we go qualifying for the Michelin 12 Hours of Paul Ricard. We will be back in a very short moment to bring you all the action from that as well. But goodbye for now.